Welcome to the Bible Stories with Gian channel. In today's video, we're going to explore a fascinating and often misunderstood question: why didn't Moses enter the Promised Land? Moses, the great leader of the Israelites, led them out of Egypt and through the wilderness for 40 years, but he himself was not allowed to enter the land God promised to his people. What happened? Why was Moses, who had been so faithful, denied this blessing? Stay tuned as we dive into the biblical story to uncover the reasons behind this decision. To understand why Moses didn't enter the Promised Land, we need to look at the story that starts in the book of Exodus. Moses was chosen by God to lead the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt. This journey is famously known as the Exodus, and you can read about it in Exodus 3:10-12. God promised to lead the Israelites to a land flowing with milk and honey, Exodus 3:8, known as the Promised Land. For 40 years, Moses led the Israelites through the wilderness. During this time, he faced numerous challenges, including the people's complaints, rebellions, and disobedience. However, despite all these difficulties, Moses remained a faithful servant of God. Yet, when the time came for the Israelites to enter the Promised Land, Moses was not allowed to join them. The key event that led to Moses being barred from entering the Promised Land took place at a place called Meribah. This story is found in the book of Numbers, chapter 20. The Israelites were in the wilderness, and there was no water for them to drink. The people quarreled with Moses, saying, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to bring us to this terrible place?" Numbers 25. Moses and Aaron, his brother, went to the entrance of the tent of meeting and fell face down before the Lord. God then spoke to Moses, telling him to take his staff and speak to a rock before the eyes of the people, and water would come out of it. Numbers 26:8. However, instead of speaking to the rock as God commanded, Moses struck the rock twice with his staff. Water gushed out, and the community drank. But this act of disobedience was costly. In Numbers 20:12, God said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them." This act may seem minor, but it was significant because Moses failed to follow God's instructions precisely. He allowed his frustration with the people to lead him to act in a way that didn't fully honor God's holiness. God's decision not to allow Moses into the Promised Land was a direct consequence of his disobedience at Meribah. This event shows us how important it is to follow God's commands exactly as given. Moses had been a faithful leader, but even a moment of disobedience had severe consequences.
In Deuteronomy 32:51-52, God reminds Moses of the reason. "This is because both of you broke faith with me in the presence of the Israelites at the waters of Meribah Kadesh in the desert of Zin, and because you did not uphold my holiness among the Israelites. Therefore you will see the land only from a distance. You will not enter the land I am giving to the people of Israel." Despite his years of leadership, Moses' failure to fully trust and obey God at that crucial moment meant that he could only see the Promised Land from a distance on Mount Nebo, Deuteronomy 34:1-4. There are several important lessons we can learn from Moses' story. First, it teaches us the importance of complete obedience to God. Even leaders like Moses are held to the highest standard. Secondly, it shows us the seriousness of representing God faithfully. Moses was God's chosen leader, and his actions reflected on God himself. When Moses struck the rock instead of speaking to it, he misrepresented God's character to the people. Finally, this story reminds us that even when we make mistakes, God's purposes will still be fulfilled. The Israelites entered the Promised Land under the leadership of Joshua, Moses' successor, as God had planned. Moses did not enter the Promised Land because of a single act of disobedience at Meribah, where he struck the rock instead of speaking to it as God commanded. This story is a powerful reminder of the importance of obedience, trust, and the weight of leadership responsibilities. but it's also a story of God's faithfulness. Despite Moses' failure, God's promise to his people was fulfilled. The promised land was given to the Israelites, just as he said it would be. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more biblical stories and lessons. Let us know in the comments what other Bible stories you'd like us to explore.